is,
Okay, I wanted to start over again, though, because I didn't want any of that. So, it's okay. So, we need to introduce the mystic arts.
The mystic arts.
We need to let people know why the mystic arts are being opened up again. And what this time is. It's what this time is. It's who you are. It's all of it.
Yeah, it's all of it. And the mystic arts is what the mystic arts encompasses. I mean, look at it. The word is mystic, and it shares the same root with mystery. So it's like that's why no one knows about what the mystic arts are, is because it's the mystery of the mysteries. That's by its very nature of its word, its name. So it's what everyone's been pursuing is the mystic arts. The mystic arts, though, is a reflection of the divine laws of existence. It is creation.
It is everything. The mystic arts encompasses what we know is reality.
Let me break it down.
Okay.
So we have the mystic arts, and we have to go back to the Sumerian culture then in Mesopotamia. Let's start there with the Nuberians, as we call them, and then the ones that were here on Earth we call the Anunnaki and the Ijiji that were on Mars first supposedly and then came here. So anyway, let's start in the Mesopotamian region of the world with them, which we call the cradle of civilization, right, or the fertile crescent of civilization, all that good stuff. And the reason why is because that's what the arts are. The arts now are mystic, but before were not mystic. They were the arts of civilization. That's recorded in stone, in tablets, in the arts of civilization where Enki gave them to Nana. So that in there, and that transfer from one city to another city, is they're showing you what was the most coveted and most important thing having to do with their civilization, which were their arts or their tenets to that civilization. So they passed those things on because whoever held those tenets of civilization was recognized as the authority, because that means that they have the most encompassing grasp on the elements that make up civilization that best reflects sovereignty of being. So that's the type of civilizations that we had back then, and that's why they were able to do things that people aren't necessarily able to do before and had such a different type of understanding. So the mystic arts it's always been here. It's just re-emerging now in this world, bearing the title mystic because it's mystical to people.
People have forgotten.
Behind the mystical aspect is the arts. And the arts of what? The arts of civilization. So what are we talking about? We're talking about divine law. And with divine law, the law, that is God's law. That is the law of deity. That's the law of existence, of creation, however you want to put it. So there is no other law that trumps that law, because all of life is held together by that law. So what we've seen during so-called history is we've seen the passing on of the arts through different cultures or through different groups of people. And we see where these civilizations jumped up. Like the most powerful civilization is because they pursued the knowledge of the arts. And by pursuing the knowledge of the arts, then they were able to accomplish great feats and organize great numbers of people, because they were speaking truths, but they were speaking truths without understanding, because at that point it was mostly empty rituals and acts instead of these first-hand experiences that were transmitted as revelations of the divine from these experiences that people were engaged in through the entheogenic gateway. And the entheogenic key is the mystery. That is the mystical aspect, because that's the part that was stomped out of the whole thing, to where once you lose that, then we're just doing things. We're doing acts and rituals and ceremonies, but with no real proper understanding of what these things were for, because the main tool, the bioorganic tool that we were given, the plants that were here and left to heal the nations, is what we were using to induce these increased states of perception to connect directly with the divine without an intermediary. So of course you would get your first cultures or cults, because we were mushroom cultivators. We were agricultural people, nomads. We were always with the animals, and so were the mushrooms. So with that, you have civilization that is cultivators of mushrooms. So these are the first mushroom so-called cults, which are also reflective of the first cultures. So all cultures stem out of mushroom culture, or entheogenic plant or sacred plant cultures. And that's where we get the word culture, is out of plants and out of this treatment that we had with these plants in this relationship. Because the plants belong to our Mother Earth. And she supplies us with all the things that we need and gives life to these bodies. So when our spirits do come here, they are wrapped and swaddled in her matter. She is the nurturing nature of what we call God. She is more fundamentally God. Because if you ask a child who first comes out of the room, it's like, look at the child. The child depends on the mother for everything. To that child, the mother is God. There is no greater God than the mother to that child. And that's the way that it is because the mother is what nurtures us in this realm of existence and is what sustains us. So the marriage between that father, the father aspect, which would be the consciousness marrying together with law, creates sovereignty, freedom, liberation, and creates the ideal being, the transcendent being, the being that's liberated from the fetters of this world.
So divine feminine, divine masculine.
That's the marriage. It's the marriage they talk about in Revelations. It's the marriage between the consciousness and law.
But what's been hidden from people, and what you have revealed to me, or one of the most astonishing things I've learned in the last 19 months, is that Earth is that it's all one. That we hear that over and over again, that we're all one. But to actually understand that we, in these bioelectrical suits that we're wearing, are connected directly to the DMT that is throughout the earth, the network of the earth, and that we have access to that at any time. And that's what's been cut off from us.
Exactly.
That access to the earth that's part of us.
Exactly.
That we wear it. We are it. Our soul lives in it.
Yeah, we develop.
And that's been hidden from us. And that's the aspect that you brought forth that I find most freeing.
Yep. Because you look around and we see these plants all around, everywhere. They grow in our backyards. They grow at the parks. They grow everywhere. And these plants that are here to serve us and to bridge the connection back with the divine for us, they sit here to be understood, but they haven't been understood in so many generations that they are mostly just misused. And now you can see that society is getting back to a place where the countercultures of this day are these entheogenic cults, I guess you could say, or these groups of people that come together that are interested in these sacred medicines because they realize that there's such a profound experience that comes with it, a profound subjective experience that is somehow also objective.
When used properly. There's two different ways to use it. You can use it to take a trip. You can use it to take a journey.
Yep.
And what I've learned is that the journey with the spiritual aspect and learning how to navigate that realm, you can control your own life.
Yes.
And what you can do is show people how to do that.
Yes. This goes back again to the Commission and even the Eastern cultures with, the coming forth in the day, the books of the dead, because what those civilizations did is they mapped out the afterlife, or the so-called afterlife, or what the Commissions would call the netherworld. And the netherworld is not the underworld as people look at it today and think of these conceptions of Sheol or hell or whatever it is. It is these divine attributions of divinity, of nature, of existence, which are the Netarus. So to be a god of the netherworld means to be the god of the primordial realm. The God of all of existence, the God that everybody looks for, the hidden God, because that is the God of everything. That is that one and all God, being, deity. Like, go ahead.
Right, and that resides in DMT.
And DMT
is the connection.
Is the portal,
in which we all produce naturally. And raising your DMT level connects you with God.
Truth. Because God is truth.
And that's what's been hidden from us. This isn't new. This is old information. Our founding fathers knew this. Our gods taught us this.
Mm-hmm.
The creators of these vessels taught us how to use the plants to stay connected to the earth so that we wouldn't be alone, so we wouldn't forget who we were. We would not forget where we came from.
Yeah. We're fully integrated in this environment.
And history has made sure that they've done everything they could to take that connection away from us so that we forget we're sovereign beings, so we're stuck on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is timing is everything.
Yep.
And the timing's right. It's been written you were coming back. It's been written the gods were coming back. But I don't mean that gods like gods. I mean that energy, that force, that
mm-hmm.
power that comes with it.
But
the knowledge.
But it's okay to even say it because, Yeshua said it. It's in their law that they are gods. It's like, that's not the question. The question is, how do you become on account of what you already are when you've forgotten it? And that's the quest, because it's not whether or not you're God. It's like you are, but you don't remember that you are. And if you don't remember that you are, then it makes no difference. Because what we don't know, we can't experience for ourselves. So that's why it always takes beings coming from outside to bring messages, because those messages come from a place to where are beyond the current understanding or limits of understanding that are present in whatever realm.
And bringing that information forth and presenting it to the world.
Well, the world just has such an idea about how these times are supposed to go down and what these times mean and what a revelation even is. And until you've experienced these things firsthand, then you don't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. It's just you're guessing, you're throwing theories, you don't know, you're speculating. But when you have the experience, then that's what changes everything, because it goes from something that belongs to somebody else to something that belongs to you. And you realize that if it can belong to you, then it belongs to everybody. And if it belongs to everybody, then what right does anybody have over another's choices? It's like it starts to create this thing, and that's what's dangerous, is because when minds start to open, because what we're talking about here is we're talking about a difference in thinking. We're talking about thinking in general.
Yeah.
So it's like,
we're talking about learning to think.
Yes.
For people to learn to think for themselves. People don't know how.
It's about learning how to recognize what the thinking process is, and to really, because most people don't even reflect on it. They think that they just do it. But the thinking, we call it a thinking process because it is a process. And if we use that process correctly with our thoughts, then that's how we generate, and that's things and manifest things through creativity. So it's a process that we take these things that we call ideas, or just whatever thoughts, and that's all we can call them, because they're formless, they're intangible at that point. They just come from who knows where, and they pop in your head, and then everyone's choice is in how they interpret that thought, and then how they choose to express it through their actions. So that's where all the morality and all that stuff comes in, because the thoughts are free, the ideas are free, and it's how do we bring them through, and how do we manifest, and what do we do with them? What are they? Where do they come from? Those are the questions we should be asking. It's like, if you want to know God, then study what the mind is. So it's like, well, if God is the mind, then what are thoughts? Right? It's like, well, like, what are thoughts then? And the way that I've told you that to think about it is the mind is like a house. And it's like you have the shell of the house, with the walls and the roof, the foundation, and the structure. But the life inside the house, the people, the movement, the conversations, all of that is what you can compare to thought. So thought is the activity of the mind. So thought is what created all things, and thought is the workman of existence, of creation. It's what orchestrated the order amongst the indifference. Like everything was undifferentiated. It was timeless. It was spaceless. It was inert. Right? It was boundless. And then what thought did is thought is like the shepherd dog, and it rounded up all that primordial ocean into an order that we call life, a process, to where then these unique expressions could then emerge through the gate of being, and then express themselves in this realm of creativity, of express creativity that we call the world or earth or this realm or creation. But it's more about potentiation. All of you potentiated on account of your own uniqueness, but we share a common form because that gateway into this realm of life is called being. So we all were in that undifferentiated state. We were all a part of that primordial ocean of just endless potentiality. But something had to stir that up and potentiate it into something that was all-encompassing, something that encompassed all of it, while leaving individuality in it, to where something could develop under its own expression of uniqueness within the confines or structures of life. So how do we get those confines in that structure if it's not law? Law is that the confines of the structure that we call being for us to exist, to be existing, because existence is something that's fundamental. Existence is what's always been. But existing, that's when time came into play. Because to be existing means to be in movement and to be in action. To be in movement, to be in action means that you can now have the passing of two different objects, which now you have time and space and difference and separation, polarization, gender. You have all that automatically emerges as soon as thought emerges out of the primordial mind. And that's what is thought is what people should be asking, because thought is what brought you the ideas of God. Thought is what brought you civilization. Thought is what brought you knowledge of yourself. Thought is what brought you everything. But where did thought come from? And who directs that thought? Who is that thought? Perhaps even a living entity in of itself? Is that who we mean as God? Is thought? And then think about it. That is more of what these monotheists would like to think that they're worshiping, because that God is inclusive, because that God says you can interpret me however you wish, because I am thought. Because what's the only thing that stands on two sides of a conversation? It's thought. Because, or even an argument, because you could have your idea and I have my idea, and we're both using thoughts, we both have to think. So somebody's going to have to come up with a more fundamental, inclusive God outside of mind and thought. So in order to even do that, you have to think and use your mind to think of something that could be. So therefore, it can't be. So it just is what it is. So what is thought? And who maybe is thought? And our closest conception to what that is left most plainly and clearly, which most almost like transliterated into the English language at least, is Thoth. T-H-O-T.
Yes.
H. Like yes. Thought. Oh my gosh.
Thought,
it's like
yes.
God of wisdom. Well, what else has all wisdom but the very delivery system of wisdom itself, which would be thought? So was not thought and wisdom and that the same thing? Of course it is.
Of course.
So thought is, so that's maybe why he could reincarnate. Maybe that's why he could jump into a vessel or an avatar. Maybe that's why he showed up as a great sage, a teacher, or in whatever other form that he was needed in the time. Because to understand thought is to understand everything. And to understand everything is to understand his reasons. To understand his reasons, there's no argument.
And you know that thought has always been here.
Yeah,
thought. It's the only thing that is always here, and it's always consistent.
Thought is what directs the continual unfoldment into more complex forms of existence. Like that's what it evolves consciousness is thought. Thought evolves consciousness. So thought is all encompassing. Thought. So this is we'll go somewhere pretty deep right now. So what we need to think about is that people don't ever think from the standpoint of their lords and saviors. Like Yeshua and like a supposed second coming, in which it's not, because he said, I'm going to send the Comforter, who is the Spirit of truth. And spirit is spiritus, which is breath. So the breath of truth, which is thought. So thought was going to come back, but in what form he could not know. It's like, because only thought alone knows what thought's going to do. So thought had come into his avatar, and it was thought that was giving this message, because thought is the word. Because thought articulated on this plane is what? It's the word. And that's maybe why the word became flesh. Because thought entered into a vessel, and those that speak truth of thought and purity of thought, those are the ones to which the word dwells in, and the word has made itself flesh. And we are all products of that word, because we are embodied reason. Because we were spoken into existence. Because this was spoken in a way not as actual Englishable words, but as tones, as frequencies, as harmonics. It was spoken, and that's what we all live in, is we live in that vibration. So that vibration has many different states, and so consciousness has different states, because consciousness is both an inward thing, an intangible thing, while it's also the most tangible thing. Because the table in front of me right now, I touch it, and that is a form of consciousness, because it's a different state of consciousness. But what is it doing if not reflecting an idea back to me so that I can know it as this table? So it is the mirror, it's the active mirror of experience to which everything is reflected back to us, so that we can comprehend it, and we can contemplate on it and analyze it, and it's so that's what it does for us. Mm-hmm. And just to I don't know, let's keep going. Something else.
This is
like
good.
Yeah,
this is good.
Yeah, it's coming now.
Yeah,
it's good. It's much better now. But I'm trying to get so it's like thought. It's like, who am I? What do I identify with? It's not identified with. It's like, look.
I've determined through this, though, that Thoth is not willing to stand behind the mystic arts. Mm-hmm. Because he keeps wanting to pop out in the conversations that could lead one way with the mystic arts. He keeps going the other way with. So he wants to be known.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Because
that's exactly what I'm getting today. He wants to be known. He doesn't want to hide behind the mystic arts. The mystic arts is what people do with what he did.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying.
Yeah.
What humanity has done with what he did is called the mystic arts.
Exactly.
But he is not the mystic arts.
Exactly.
He is bigger than the bigger mystic arts. So
he is being. He
is being.
What we know as his being is thought, because thought is what called itself into being. It asked no permission. It had no one to look to. Ate under its own nature. That's its own nature. Its own nature was to become. That's thought. Thought, it was an inevitability. Out of all the potentials and possibilities, there's only one that led to life, as we know it, which was thought.
Yes.
And thought is what orchestrated all of this. And thought was represented as deity as such, because the way that they understood it is they only recognized it as the knowledge and wisdom aspect. But they didn't. That's how we understand it, because everything had its consort, it had its counterpart. Mm-hmm. So those counterparts made up their Ennead, to which Thoth was the head of the Ennead. So Thoth is all 9 of those beings. He's one in all. And so it's different states of being that we go through, but our ultimate state of being is one being, one body. That's why we all belong to the same body. And people have called that force a lot of different names, as it has come to deliver its message of reconciliation.
Whatever form they needed to see it in.
Yep.
It's the magic of it.
That's the magic of it. But to ask thought what it is, it'll tell you that it's nothing. Because it's no thing. It's not a person, it's not a place, and it's nothing. So it's like, okay, because thought, it wears all identities while wearing no identities. It's the thing that has all the names but no name.
And it's complete paradox.
It's paradox. So the only way to know thought is to become thought. Is to become pure thought.
And the only way to do that is to know yourself.
Yep. Yep. And lose all these identities that we gather in this world. I'm this, I'm that, I'm from here, I do this, I do that. All that.
Programs.
That doesn't matter because none of that goes past this point. So as soon as we start identifying more fundamentally with ourselves as being just pure thought and consciousness, the light, the very light itself, like as it emerged, it became light because it became difference. It was difference. It was something that was different than what was already happening. So all things are children of thought. Because nothing is existing that wasn't thought into existence.
Correct.
Yep. It's the gateway.
And that one's deep. That one's deep. That one's going to give people something to think about for a little bit on that one.
Yep. Yep. That's why if we can think it, it exists. Because just the fact that you can think about it, it exists. Now, where it exists and what state it exists, now, when we're thinking about it just as a thought form, and not even maybe as a visual thought form, maybe just an idea or a concept. But then as it crystallizes, it takes on forms. That's why we call them thought forms, because now we give them identities. And then as we pull them through these vessels and it through express creativity, then they take on their last form, their most densified expression or form. But initially it just arrived as a pure thought. And then we work with that thought until we think we understand it, and then we interpret it as such. So those that are after truth and wisdom and all that, then the way that they start interpreting thought is in alignment with the very laws of existence. They become creational players rather of progress rather than just being swept along in this repetitious cycle of life.
Through thought.
Through thought.
All through thought.
Through saying, I rather identify with thought than anything else. And I don't need to place identity specifically on what pure thought is. It's like I just want to identify with pure thought. So let thought tell me what it is and what it sees itself as, rather than me trying to think that I know what it is. It's like when you open yourself to that, then it can really come in and show you what it is. And it's not something that you can, as Terence McKenna would say, is that you can English. It's nothing. It's something that's not, you can't articulate. You can't articulate as far as describing what you see or feel or in the context of the senses of the body. But that's when the senses of the mind kicked in, which is the mind's eye, and it's in you have your hearing there because you can read silently and still hear a voice talking, your voice talking to you. So you have a different set of ears which belong to the transcendental mind, and you have a different set of eyes, which is just one singular eye, which we call our mind's eye. So when we operate within the senses of that mind, and then we are able to perceive much different things than what we're able to perceive here. And it shows us more of what it fundamentally is than what it is interpreted to be. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. See, I had a thought when you were talking, and now I've lost it. It'll come back to me. You paused.